Okay, thanks everybody. This is Malware Freak Show. I'm going to run through briefly of the agenda here. So we're going to talk about who we are, how do we get the malware, analysis outline. I'm going to go through some samples. That's where you're going to see some demos. This is going to be we have 50 slides and 4 demos to go through, so we're going to be going through this rather quickly. And then we're going to finish up with some conclusions and give you a list of some tools we like to use. So, who we are. I'm Nick Percoco. I'm the head of Spider Labs. I have about 14 years information security experience. My world of information security and things like that started about 15, 16 years ago when I started dabbling around and running EFNet IRC servers back when I was in school. Used to dabble around with IRC bots, wrote a bunch of bots that emulated ELIZA, trying to do the Turing test online, even had a bot get asked out to prom. This is Jibran Ilyas.
Hi guys, I'm Jibran. As you can read, I've done hundreds of security and incident responses, and just recently I got a master's degree from Northwestern University, so as you can see, I'm a good boy. And we'll be taking you on a ride, so hopefully everyone's ready. Go.
Okay, so who Spider Labs is. So basically, we're a team within TrustWave. We've done incident response, penetration testing, application security tests for TrustWave clients, and sort of the mass, the volume that we've done hundreds of security incidents we responded to. We've done thousands of ethical hacking exercises, and hundreds of business applications have been tested through our labs. So how do we get the malware? Now, we didn't set computers up on the internet and just allow people to hack them and get malware on the computers. The malware we're going to show in the next several slides is actual malware that we took out of environments that were compromised environments. Now, these environments were confirmed compromised. The data was confirmed taken from these environments and used for fraudulent purposes out in the real world. And so we're going to take you through that. And really, the basic method of acquisition, we do a lot of live analysis, memory dumps, disk imaging, and then of course take all that stuff back to our labs, either in Chicago or London, and churn through it to be able to produce some results. So, analysis outline, we tried to organize each of these samples in sort of a cohesive manner. So basically, we're going to go through the basic architectures and really be able to try to tell a story about the environment these were taken out of. So what did the architecture look like? What were the problems that we saw within the environment? What tools were found? And really, what did the hackers leave behind? What were the traces that we found? And then, of course, the installation vector. How did the tools get into the environment in the first place? And then do some static dynamic analysis, show you what we learned about the malware, and how did data get out of the environment, and of course, what you're probably really looking forward to seeing. We're actually going to demo this stuff live. So we'll jump into sample A. So now, basically, this environment, this was a casino club in Las Vegas. So it's someplace not too far from this hotel. Visually showing you the visual aspects of the environment so you can see what the environment looked like. You have sort of over on the right-hand side of that screen, you have the internet, right? Everybody knows what that is. And then you have a firewall, sitting out there. And basically a back-of-the-house server. This is a server that basically is used for processing the data that's being transmitted and used by the front-of-the-house systems. And so the POS terminals you see, these are things that range from little small, bulky calculator-type devices that people are swiping cards through, up to your touchscreen computers that are being used in clubs. And specifically in this environment, these were the touchscreen systems. When you go to a club, go to a bar, server takes your credit card, they swipe your card through the system, they type in what you have, a couple of beers, a martini, and they and off goes the data. And so that's what was being used here in this environment. So what were the problems that were found in this environment? So very, very basic stuff. So remote desktop was allowed from the internet into the club point of sale system. So the previous slide I showed you this point of sale server out there, remote desktop, wide open from the internet. We found common passwords, weak passwords in the environment, and specifically the point-of-sale system that was being used, and the point-of-sale system name, and the name of the system was also used as the password. And also, basically, it makes it very, very easy for the people to, the IT guys to admin these systems, but it made it easy for the attackers to get in. We found out that antivirus hadn't been updated on the point-of-sale systems for at least 8 months. So that was a big problem there. And then, of course, basically the customer data we saw in the system was carried over from 2 previous owners. So if you think about this, you're running a restaurant, or basically in this case, you're running a bar, and you go out of business, or you're going to try to sell the stuff on eBay. And so this happened twice with these systems that we looked at. Someone sold them online, or they sold them to somebody else, and no one bothered to wipe the system. So we found customer data from 2 previous owners that were live on these systems. And of course, this casino's network was very, very flat. The club that we investigated was connected right on the same exact flat network as the reservation systems, the same exact flat networks as the fast food places that were in the lobby, and the gift shops, wide open. Anybody who plugs into any of those networks can navigate to any of the systems in the environment. Tools we found in the environment, we're going to go into more detail. You probably can't read this anyways from after the third or fourth row, so we're going to skip past this. Basically, installation vector. How did the attacker get into the environment? Well, of course, remote desktop. We already talked about that. The targeted account was POS user. The attackers that are launching these attacks, they have a whole laundry list of the point of sale username and passwords available to them. They know exactly what the default passwords are. Scan out there, found remote desktop, try the default username and passwords, and they're in the environment. Basically, once they were in, they downloaded an SFX archive, and basically from a website that we actually were able to navigate onto, and it was still up and running when we were doing the investigation, but it was Drugzeller, and we're not going to show you the rest of the name there. But basically, SFX archive had a keylogger and PuTTY executable within it. The other interesting aspect is that the attacker then went and purchased, using the BARS computers, went online, purchased a SMTP server to install it on the club point of sale system. As noted, that was on the previous slide. Really, the only way into the environment was remote desktop. The only way out of the environment was through the point of sale system, the point of sale server. The front end terminals had no ability to get out of the environment. And then, of course, they used VNC to manage those systems because the point-of-sale terminals had no keyboard and really no mouse. And so if they needed to manage it or do upgrades, the IT folks would just VNC from the point-of-sale server, and that's how they would get in the environment. Here's a listing of the directory. You want to take this?
Sure. So as you can see, we got into their server, and we see a lot of interesting tools. Basically, some of them are keylogger executables, some of them are remote desktop crackers, and so forth. So, and this is a screenshot, as Nick just told you, that they actually bought an SMTP server from the merchant's machine. So that's a screenshot for that at $69 that they spent. And anyone want to guess whose credit card they used? That's from the merchant. All right, so what does xxx.exe do? All right, so what they do, this is basically a packed SFX archive. So when they installed it in a folder that's in program files Outlook folder, so they could get hidden from IT administrators and security administrators who are looking for malware. So as you can see, Windows Security is one of the other folders that they install their things in. See Windows System 32, malware favorite, and then other one, the hackers that are lazy, they basically install it in C program files BPK folder. So basically, this keylogger has ability to hide from task manager, start menu, system tray. So all if a regular IT person takes a look at it, if you were to take a look at it, you wouldn't be able to tell that a keylogger is running on the system. And basically, the file that they store the credit card track data that they steal from the systems, it's actually an encrypted, statically encrypted file, which could only be opened by keylogger's log viewer. And that's a great way to hide the data. So, if a regular person is looking at bpk.dat file, and even if you try to open it with Notepad, you won't be able to see the contents because it's all encrypted. Keylogger, that's one of the more interesting things about the keylogger when we were investigating it. It takes screenshots at regular intervals. So basically, not only that it had, my screenshot, activities of my activities, it also had attackers' activities. So when the attackers were going into their website, it was taking screenshots every 30 seconds, and it was storing in a hidden directory. All right, so basically now I'm going to show you some of the options of this keylogger. As you can see, it's a commercially available keylogger, but they had a very customized version of this keylogger. So as you can see, you can hide this program icon, and there's a key combination that only the attacker knows to get this options menu up, and you could even hide it from Control-Alt-Delete, and basically, you can run on Windows startup so that the keylogger comes up even when you boot up the systems. All right, that's another screen. That's basically for the visual surveillance I was talking about. It didn't even spare attackers' activity. So they were taking screenshots every 15 minutes and medium resolution. They didn't want anything big. They're kind of nice. This is for the emailing of the logs, the keylogger output. And basically, what this is saying that every 30 minutes, they were sending logs via email. That's another screen. Now the attackers, basically, they could have monitored every single key typed on the keyboard on the hacked computer. But they wanted to cut their work. So they basically started monitoring just the applications that contain credit card data. So on a point of sale system, they only put one application that was known to process credit card transactions. So as Nick said, if you go to a bar, you swipe at a credit card, the application that actually processes those transactions, that's the application that they were monitoring. And do you want to get?
Yeah, sure. So basically, these are some of the logs that we collected. Basically, this is from this keylogger. We had to black those out, but those are actually track data logs from the actual swipes that were going on inside this bar. But basically, that the keylogger was then emailing this off to an email address, a Montana email address, Montana at a free email domain. Here's some other screenshots here. One thing interesting is that you can see that the attacker was actually also tripped up in their own keylogger, and when they were logging into their own FTP site, we were able to obtain their password. And the other thing here, you can see where they were actually copying and pasting the serial code or the serial key for the keylogger itself, when they were, or not for the keylogger, but for the SMTP gateway. Here's some other logs we obtained from the SMTP gateway. You can see some things going on where they're actually sending that data out, sending it out to various to the email address. We had to black out a lot of things here to protect the innocent, but you could see sort of the data going back and forth. So right now we're going to jump into a live demo, and Jibran's going to take you through sort of the installation and the execution of the specific piece of malware.
All right. So we're going to do a live demo for you in our VMware machine. Okay, one thing that we didn't mention was that the POS terminals themselves, they weren't able to go online. So what they had to do to get data out was to installed an SMTP server on the back of house server because they had internal communications. So the SMTP server was running on a private IP address, and that back of house server, which had connection to the internet, that was acting as an email proxy to send data out. All right. Okay, you guys can see everything okay? All right, so we're going to jump right into the malware. It's a keylogger malware demo that we're doing. So if you see this icon, who wants to guess what this application looks like? So it's an obfuscated application. Putty, there you go. So on the face of it, it looks like a putty application, but behind the scenes, I'm going to show you what it does. So basically, when this malware runs, it installs a keylogger, and you would actually see an SFX archive, being cracked there. So I'm going to open two folders, basically. One is going to be a temp folder, and one's going to be a C Windows security folder, and that's the folder where the keylogger installs its files in. So here's the security folder where the files are going to go. So I'm just going to run this, and then minimize this folder. So as you can see, as you guessed it, it's a putty on the front end. You don't know what happened in the background, right? So if I close this, you'll see that the keylogger files are put in the security folder. And this temp directory, where the SFX archive was kind of extracting, you can see this has the putty application. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to show how attackers take the data. As I mentioned earlier, that they were only monitoring the POS application. So I'm actually going to go to the folder where the POS application resides, and that is this bin folder. So, if I put something in notepad.exe, it won't detect because it's not monitoring notepad.exe. So what I have to do is basically copy notepad from system32 folder. All right, so I'm going to copy notepad from system32 folder. I'm going to place it in this bin folder because this is one of the processes that they're monitoring. And I'm going to change its name to payment application. And then I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to feed track data to this file. So this is basically, we're kind of tricking the malware to think that this notepad.exe is a point of sale application. So anything that I swipe in here, so these magnetic stripe readers that you guys see on bars, these are basically keyboard input. So when you swipe credit cards here, the computer basically takes it as a keyboard input, and that's how it logs. So I'm going to swipe a credit card here. All right, so one thing I want to show you is that, when we looked at this file, this folder before, the bpk.dat file was in there. And as you can see, as I swipe credit card here, you'll actually see basically this bpk.dat file is going to grow. So right now it's only 1 KB, and I'm just going to keep swiping the card. Hopefully Dark Tangent doesn't mind. All right. I think we got enough of it. Maybe you could memorize it. Okay. So now we're going to go back to that folder where the keyboard keylogger is putting its output file. And this is the security folder. As you can see, it's 2 kilobytes right now. So I'm going to try to open this with the notepad first, just to kind of show you that, if you're a regular security administrator, what you're going to see in this output file. So here we go. I'm going to open it with WordPad, and all you see is just garbage. So all this data is encrypted in the keylogger's format. Okay, so what we're going to have to do to actually see the data is actually install the keylogger, and we're going to install a legit version in a bit. And that legit version is in my supporting tools. So I'm going to install a trial version. This is basically a 5-day trial. Don't try this at home, obviously. All right, I have to agree to the terms, and I'm going to call it a legit keylogger. All right, so we're going to just install, launch the installed program so we can view the log file that the attacker created. And as you can see, they want to thank you for being attacked. And there we go. We're going to go to options, logging, view log. And as I mentioned before, all the output is being stored in cWindows security folder. So I'm going to go ahead and open this log file in cWindows security folder. And there you go. So it's the keylogger is basically monitoring 2 processes, explorer.exe and iber.exe, which I mentioned this is a point of sale application process. We basically just tricked the malware to think that notepad.exe is actually iber.exe. So all this track data that you can see, they're taking it home. And that's basically how they take the data. Now, one thing I want to mention here is that now that security controls are being widely adopted and the databases of these point of sale applications are being encrypted, and the data is being encrypted in transit. Well, what I mean by that is from front of house machine to the back of house machine. The only way for them to take the data is the data in transit. And this keylogger is a perfect way to do it because as soon as you swipe, it's intercepting the track data. So that's basically concludes the keylogger demo. And you can actually save this file as HTML or whatever you want when you have it on site. And then they basically sell these credit cards to the black markets. All right. Jump back in. Yeah. All right. So I'm just basically gonna go to my snapshot, and as you can see, my snapshot's name is Colin Shepard. He's probably around somewhere. He's my boss. Thank you, Colin. All right. So while it restores, we're going to jump on the second piece of malware that we found. We're going to demo that as well later on. But for now, we're just going to suspend this machine and take it when Nick is ready. Okay. Back in. All right.
Okay, so now the second piece of malware we obtained from a hotel in New York. So we're going to go through that example here. So basically the architecture, as you see here, looks rather similar to what we saw in the casino club. But one minor difference here is, or actually major difference, is that this was a chain of hotels. And so there was more than one environment connected here. And so you sort of see the router there leading up to corporate. That's a key aspect of sort of how this compromise took place. But then you also see we also have multiple machines here. We have a gift shop, a restaurant, a bar, central processing server. One thing to note when we are we're sort of looking at the problems here, when we've done these investigations, we've often stay at the same hotel that these investigations are taking place, and the people on our team have actually noticed that when you plug into the hotel room, oftentimes you're actually able to reach all these servers that are around the environment. So the IT administrators probably made one major mistake by actually plugging the switches in the wrong place. So keep that in mind when you're actually using hotel internet access. We've also seen that the wireless internet access plugged into the same exact network as the reservation systems in a lot of the hotels. But basically, the problems we saw here, the firewall was a consumer level firewall. So this is sort of a major hotel that was using a consumer grade firewall for their firewall, but basically allowed RDP into many systems into the environment. A couple of things: hotel management systems and the point of sale systems hadn't been patched in a number of years, and in this specific case, since 2004 and 2006, they had not run any updates in the environment. Weak username and passwords. Actually, the administrator password was NIMDA in the environment, which made things probably easy for the IT guy to remember, but it also made it very easy for anybody who's trying to guess that password. They had no antivirus and no anti-malware or anything running on any of these systems. Really didn't matter much because, like you've seen in Jibran's demo, and which you'll see in some of the other demos, a lot of the malware that we find was custom created or just compiled directly before they actually put them in the environment. So having antivirus in the environment really wouldn't help there. But again, no network segmentation between any of the environments at all. Tools found, some things to note here. Basically the stuff that's highlighted in black, we're going to show you some things, more detail about it. But there are some other tools, basically were associated with this attack as well. So installation vector, again, this was remote desktop live on the internet. Basically, it targeted two different accounts. You have your administrator account, the backup account was targeted, and then SQL debugger account was targeted as well. Again, they downloaded the attacker toolkit, and then basically one key difference here is that they didn't just target the one environment. When they got into the environment, they actually basically were able to connect to all the other environments in this chain of hotels, and they used PSExec to deploy this malware. One thing to note, this malware we're talking about here is actually a memory dumper malware. So it's a bit different than the keystroke logger. It actually targets memory. So we're gonna show you more of that. Some static analysis. Now, there's two components to this malware package. There was a communication component, and basically this service, or this piece of the malware, actually ran as a service. It makes an SSL connection over up to a system in South Korea, and basically had some anti-debugging features built into it. So basically, if you try to run it through Explorer, it would do things like try to lock the workstation, try to terminate any processes that are running, and close all terminal sessions, and basically try to disrupt what you're trying to do. If you're trying to run it through Explorer. It also checks to see if it's running in VM, so it sort of thwarts the things that we're doing here. So we're actually not going to demo this aspect of it because we're using VM as a demo. But basically, if it detects VM running in the environment, it actually tries to shut itself down and shut down the entire computer. It also has all the strings it was using to search for things in the environment. It actually encrypted them and then decrypted them upon run. Other interesting things. So when we ran this tool and actually decrypted the strings, we found this little bit of a little note that the attacker left here. So one thing interesting is that it basically said, "I currently do not know what I intend to do with this, but I accepted the fact I must do some limited experiments." So it's pretty interesting. The limited experiments included about 80 hotels. Basically here, this is the really active piece that we're going to talk about and we're going to demo. This is winmanagement.exe. It was basically a normal Windows binary. It referenced a lot of things in it. WinSock API, it had some FTP commands in it. And then one thing you probably see very small down there, that's actually the regular expressions to search for track 1 and track 2 data. And track 1 and track 2 data, for those who aren't familiar with it, if you pull out your credit card out of your pocket, the data that's stored on the back of your credit card in magnetic stripe is essentially it's not encrypted. It's essentially just encoded on the back of that card, just like Jibran showed you in the Notepad demo. But basically, this piece of malware is going to parse memory, and every single time it finds track 1 or track 2 data, it's going to log it to a file. So basically, some things. We're going to walk through this stuff because he's going to actually show you this. But basically, the big item here is that it's designed to monitor one of 8 point-of-sale systems. Now, we've seen later versions that sort of expand their scope, but the attackers really know what they're looking for. They're not just sort of taking a guess and saying, let's launch it in the environment and just start dumping processes. This executable actually was compiled with the intent to find one of 8 different point-of-sale systems and take the data out of memory. So some more data here about sort of the data, how the data got out of the environment. So basically, the tool itself, another process that was sort of used in conjunction with this was actually creating encrypted RAR files. Something we really noted in our investigations was that the encrypted RAR files, we didn't know what the passwords were. So we going through a cracking exercise and found it easier because we took memory dumps. We actually found the passwords in memory on several of the systems we obtained. And then using the same password scheme, basically they use the server name, the system name in their password scheme, we're able to then decrypt all the other locations RAR files. Really, when it was all said and done, there was about 350,000 cards that we obtained from the RAR files that were pulled from these systems. And then sort of propagation, and like I mentioned earlier, the attackers were just basically able to leapfrog from this one single environment and deploy this tool on all the other environments that were sort of in the chain of systems. So here's Jibran with the live demo.
Okay. All right, before I do this demo, I just want to ask, how many people have memory in their computers? All right, so this is going to be fun because this malware is taking the data from the memory. So how a secure application that you're running, even if you're running TrueCrypt and all, there's a point in time where your data it remains unencrypted in the memory. So watch out for this. All right, so I'm going to resume my virtual machine. Okay, so this is not a single executable. This is going to have 3 pieces to this, and I'm going to demo all 3 of them. All right, so as you can see, there are 3 files that this malware uses to steal credit card track data from the systems. That CSR SVC, this is the actual memory dumper, and as Nick mentioned, there are about 8 point-of-sale applications that it's monitoring. And so we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to try to trick this malware to think that notepad.exe is one of the point-of-sale applications. This DNS-mgr.exe that was compiled on the box, this is basically a track data parser. So when you have huge memory dumps from the processes, it looks at the memory dumps, and it looks for credit card track data, and then it takes it out of that file. That winmgmt.exe, now this winmgmt.exe, if you're a network administrator, you probably know that it's a legit Windows file, but in this case, they're using that as a malicious purpose. That's their binary, not the one that's found on our machine. Okay, so we're going to go with the demo. Okay, so as we can see, there are only 3 files here right now, and it's going to increase, so watch out for that. So basically, this winmgmt.exe, if you run it as in a standalone binary, it won't run. It will give you an error. To install that, you actually have to have the install switch. And once you do that, as you can see, it's installed it as a service. So the intent of the malware is to stay persistent on the system because they're taking the data in transit. So they want to have their presence in the system even after you reboot the systems. So it's installed as a service. So again, if you're a regular IT administrator, you look at this service, you're not going to doubt this service because it says Windows Management Help Service Install. All right, so luckily we have these malware writers have a debug option, and they code it. So we're going to run this malware in a debug mode. So basically, just look out for 2 things here. So what we see here, we see 3 files. So when I run it in debug mode, it's going to create a memdump folder, which is going to be the location that memory dumps are created in. And then you're going to see 2 more processes here in the task in the system tray. So it's going to be that memory dumper, and the second process is going to be the track data parser. All right, so let's go ahead with that. Okay, so as I promised, we got the memdump folder. Now notice it has no file in here because it's not finding the process that it wants to monitor, but it's got these 2 applications, wonderful applications that are going to monitor the system for track data. And they run pretty much hidden from the system. It's just that I'm running it in debug mode. That's why you're seeing all this data here. All right, so what we're going to do is first I'm going to just run I'm going to feed the track data to notepad.exe to kind of show you what the malware does with it. Poor dark tangent. We got him again. Okay. So as you can see, I'm feeding a legitimate track data to this notepad application, and this malware is not responding. It's not doing anything. Otherwise, it would say something in here where it's monitoring. So we can tell that it's not monitoring notepad.exe. So what we're going to do is basically trick the malware again and rename notepad.exe as the name of a point-of-sale application. So I'm going to go to this system32 folder again. Notepad.exe. I'm going to call it cdi.exe, which is a point-of-sale system application. And now I'm going to have these two here again. cdi.exe. So as soon as I do that, you're going to see that it's going to create a dump. And this dump is being created in this memdump folder. And you can see it has the name of the application, which is, it's thinking that it's a point-of-sale application. And it has the process ID and the name of the dump. So right now in this folder, we only have a dump for about 238 kilobyte. But this dump is going to increase as we feed data to the point-of-sale application. And we're going to see it right now. So cdi.exe is running right now. And I'm going to feed track data to it. 1 and a 2, 1 and 3. Okay. So now that I've fed track data to this payment application process, pretty soon we're going to see here that this it's going to create another dump, and it's going to find track data in the file. So it usually takes a dump every 2 minutes, but in the interest of time, I'm actually going to trigger this application to create a dump. So I'm just going to save this this file as trigger the dump. All right. Yeah, we'll stay simple. So what you're going to see pretty soon, actually you see it right now, the malware is pretty fast. It's running faster than I'm running. So basically it has found track one data. And pretty soon you're going to see an attacker output file, which they take home in the same memory dumper folder. So as you can see, that it just created a file. This file wasn't here before, dirmon.chm. And this is basically, it looks like a help file. So again, they're trying to, fool the IT administrators or security administrator because they'll think, okay, it's a CHM file. How harmful could it be? But we're going to open this in Notepad. So you're going to see how easy, how neat of their output is. So I'm going to open this in WordPad again. And there you go. So basically what they're taking home is, this neat of a file, grmon.chm. And it tells them that, hey, this is where the dump was. I found track 1 data, and then I found track 2 data. And the data is there as well. And it's pretty good at sorting out duplicates as well. So it's doing a lot of things. So that basically concludes our memory dumper malware. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that I've shown you the demo for only the track data, but just imagine how much stuff goes through your memory. If you're using Firefox, you're typing in your social security number, you're typing in your password. Even the passwords that go through SSL, they can be in the memory. So anyone who uses memory in their computers, you got to be careful here. And it's basically, it has PGP keys, TrueCrypt keys, basically everything that you type. And one thing that I want to mention here is that the keylogger malware, even though it's all nice and stuff, it only grabs the input that you guys feed to it. So if you're typing in the input, that's what keylogger is going to get. Memory is a little different. Memory is actually more risky. I call it a keylogger on steroids, basically, because not only that your input is being monitored, the input, the party that you're communicating with, like if you're on AIM, chatting with someone on AOL, you type in some info, your buddy types in some info, that's going to stay in memory. So if you're parsing for the right stuff, memory has a lot of good info. So just watch out for that. So that basically concludes our memory dumper malware. Nick's going to show you another malware, which is even more interesting. So watch out for that.
Okay, so now we're going to jump back. We're going to jump into back into the presentation. Hold on, you got to refresh that.
Suspend the machine.
Okay. So the next piece of malware that we're going to talk about, basically, it's based upon some investigations we performed, and it's based upon more of a proof of concept. And basically, the investigations that we've performed.
Oh.
No, let's just go on. So basically, the investigation we performed, various systems have been attacked with what we're calling credentialed malware. And sort of to define that for you, we're going to go into the next slide. But just something to note is that what we're showing in this demo, we're not talking about any vulnerabilities in any video poker system. We didn't find any vulnerabilities in a video poker system. Just sort of leaving that as a disclaimer here for everybody in the room. But really, the purpose of this demo is to talk about and introduce the concept of credentialed malware. And so what is credentialed malware? Just like any other piece of malware, but the idea and concept that once you get this malware into a system, you as the attacker or the person who's running this malware is now able to dispatch credentials in the form of tokens to other people to be able to use it. And you could set roles and tasks that they're able to perform. Specifically, this type of malware is targeting kiosk-based environments, so places where you're not able to maybe get information out via a network interface, but you're able to walk up to that system and actually perform some transactions. So basically, these tokens are being used as authentication tokens to trigger various aspects of the malware. And then, of course, in the organized crime world, you could think of a sort of hierarchy where you could then rent these tokens to do various functions. And you could then shut them off, turn them back on, and control who has access to this malware that you now have on a system. So to sort of introduce that concept, we decided to choose a video poker system. So to show the architecture here, we have over on the left-hand side, or the sort of the green screen there, you have the video poker desktop. And so that's the video poker system that everybody probably walks around the casino. You see it, 1,000 instances of them sitting out there. And then over on the left-hand side, the credentialed token that we're going to use in this demo is actually a voucher. So everybody has seen vouchers before. We have some of them here printed up. It's a $20 voucher. So basically, you inserted that into the machine. It allows you to play the game. You lose all your money, and then you sort of get up and go home. In this case, now we have the casino network, and we also have the casino itself. So some common problems in this type of environment. You're talking about physical access to these devices. So number of machines in the environment. Does the eyes in the sky actually watch the repair people? You walk around casinos, you see people opening up machines all the time. Something jams, something's broken, something burns out. They're replacing boards. Who's watching those people? Are they keeping track of what they're actually doing? Unique passwords are difficult to manage. In our investigations, looking at systems in hotels and casinos and other various places, they use the same password on every single system. Do you think that the password's unique on every single video poker machine? Probably not. Also, are you running antivirus on these video poker machines? Probably not. And then, of course, under the hardened case, you have, really it's just a low-end PC. Other keyboard ports, USB ports. What is there? And then, of course, what OS are they running? We don't know. How often are they patched? Probably not very often. So installation vectors, possible scenarios here: physical attack. Someone walks up who has a legitimate need to get into the system. They install a USB key fob or something in the environment. Install the malware, it executes and now is running on the system. Another scenario is the malware is placed on the system from the distributor or the manufacturer, and it's there running live. Now, one thing to note is that the tokens that we're going to talk about and show you, that's what's used to actually trigger this malware. So you as a normal user walking up to the system, you're not going to be able to know that the malware is running on the system at all. Basically, the token concept, what we're introducing here, is sort of multiple types of levels of things. So we're talking about single function, authentication cards, where we're talking user vouchers. Basically, that triggers one aspect of it. This may be given to a mule who you say go to these various video poker machines, insert it into the system, and basically tell me what it says on the screen. That might be one function of a mule. A multifunction could be someone who's actually deployed this malware. They're able to do other commands and run various other things. And of course, if the malware doesn't see a user voucher in place, it just continues on. It thinks that someone's sitting down playing a game. Nothing ever really happens. So the functions we put into this demo here, so basically your keyboard input is very limited. You walk up to a video poker machine, you have the hold keys, you have your deal, your max bet, and some various other keys, but you don't have a full keyboard. So you have to really take use of those if you're going to write malware for this. So in examples here we have, you hit, if you authenticate with the video poker machine, you hit the hold 1 button, it uninstalls it. So you can sort of wipe the tracks that this malware's been running on there. Hit number 2, display stats on the system. It tells you how many uses have been taking place with this malware. It tells you, various other things. Then, of course, you can modify the credits, and the thing that's even more interesting is being able to modify the credits or shift the odds. And when you modify the credits, you can enter in what you want that system to actually have on it, and then, of course, cache it out. So propagation, similar type of thing. If these things are all network connected together, what can you actually do from there? I think we talked about it in some other demos. So basically here, we're going to boot up the video poker machine and show you this live.
All right. Okay, so I'm back to my virtual machine, and we're gonna see the video poker malware. And don't try this here, because you could get in a lot of trouble. All right.
Okay, so we have the malware booting up here. So while it's booting up, or actually this is the video poker system booting up. So while it's booting up, really to talk a little more about the vouchers. So we have in my hand I have the $20 voucher. This is a legitimate voucher that we're going to use. We have one of the user vouchers. This one will actually trigger the single function, and then we have a voucher that actually will trigger the multi-function card. So we're going to go through and actually swipe those in. Okay. So here goes the $20 voucher. Jibran's going to enter into the system. There you go. So we got the $20 voucher going in. So you see there's 20 credits on the screen. So now we're gonna go ahead and play. Max bet it. You see the bets go $20 there. Of course, what happens? It happens to everybody here as you go through, and then you lose. So now we're gonna swipe the single-use voucher. So through the system, and see what happens there. Single-use voucher is intercepted by the malware. It actually pops up the display stats here, so you can see information about the voucher or about the system that we're looking at. IP address tells you the name of the malware that's running on there. Sort of the odd shift sort of concept of actually changing the odds on the system. And of course, then you just sort of move on and you clear it out, and it goes back to a regular screen. Next piece, we're going to actually demo the multi-use voucher here. So now a couple different functions here. So now this pops up a menu. Like I showed you earlier, the menu of doing various things. The first thing we're going to do is actually option 3. And it tells us it shifted the odds +1. So basically it put it in our favor. And you can sit down and do that, and you clear the screen, and now you start playing. You may have, in various aspects here, that they actually may be able to rent someone a voucher that actually only lets them do that. So they can only shift the odds. They can't do anything else. And so you could put a price on that. Now we're going to run another multi-use voucher through the system that's going to let us do something else. So we're going to pick option 4, clear through it, and we're actually going to be able to go through and actually modify the credits. And we only have 5 keys to play with here, so really the combinations of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we're going to actually modify and add 54,321 credits to the system. And of course, you see in the bottom left-hand corner, we've added those credits. In a normal scenario, you maybe want to bet those credits, or maybe you want to cash out. And so now we've cashed out, and our system's cleared. No one has any knowledge that we've actually done this. I'm sitting in front of it in a casino. Okay. So now we're going to jump in. We only have about 8 minutes left, so we're going to quickly go through the last one and see if we actually can actually show you that demo.
Okay. All right, so this last sample we have is a restaurant in Michigan. Basically, the similar problems as the first 2 malware. These little merchants, they don't have a full-time IT staff, so they have a third-party ID integrator supporting them. So they like to come into the systems with ease. They don't like to travel anytime there's a broken printer. So they have VNC open from outside, so they could just control all the machines from outside. Similar thing, no egress filtering, no outbound filtering on the back-of-house server, and the point-of-sale terminals with full internet access allowed. So the problems in here were, obviously VNC was allowed from outside, which is a big no-no. The systems had weak password. Actually, for 18 of those restaurants in Michigan, the integrator was using the same password. And the passwords were basically, the credentials were admin and support. Pretty simple. The point-of-sale terminals were not running antivirus server. There was unrestricted internet access and basically same passwords for all the systems in the region. This is basically the malware list from that system. And what I want to show here is that this malware is kind of special because what it does, it has an IRC bot. And when you install the malware, it looks for a POS application version, and then it creates the malware on site, and it tells the malware to monitor the ports of that specific point of sale system. So this IRC bot does that, and then there's a custom packet sniffer, and then all the data is being placed in a C export folder and then uploaded to FTP server. So basically for this malware, even the attackers had to install Microsoft .NET framework. I thought that was pretty funny. It was only sniffing the TCP traffic on 4 ports, and then basically the files were IP address .send.cap and IP address read.cap. And the data was being uploaded to a server in Munich, Germany. I don't think we're going to have time to show the malware, so we're just going to go to the conclusion slide, and we're going to... yeah. Actually, we'll just do the conclusion after some comments. So I just want to show you the additional comments here. We got that. We actually told FBI about it, and the server was raided, and we found out that 18 of the locations were sending data to that particular FTP server. And we are basically investigating about 6 of them right now. So we're going to hit the conclusions right now. So as you can see, malware is dominating. Computer memory is the target to extract sensitive data. One thing that I forgot to mention on the memory dumper malware was that, I've basically seen, I have a pretty funny relationship with these malware writers. Basically, I've seen them grow. I've seen the malware grow. So before, malware used to take the full kernel dumps and put it in the hard disk. And as you can imagine, when it creates too many dumps, the system is going to run out of disk. So do you want to guess what the solution of the merchants was when they were seeing low disk space on their servers? Add more disks. You got it. So they basically purchased Western Digital drives. They were putting data in, and they were deleting actually their legit files. So they were deleting their accounting files to fit, to accommodate the attackers' memory dumps. So that was kind of funny. And as I said, they've grown, and it's going to keep growing. So watch out for this memory dumper malware. And you heard it here first. You're going to see this memory dumper malware grow a lot and take a lot of your personal data. So watch out.
Sure, yeah. And the other aspects here, really what we're finding is the companies are really not learning. So many of the investigations, like you saw from the initial way that the attackers are getting in the environment, these are simple tactics. I mean, guessing passwords using RDP or VNC, very, very simple. But historically, what they were doing before was, basically smash and grab is done. They're not popping into the environments and actually just deleting, just moving the files off the system. They're actually sticking around for a very long time. We didn't mention in some of the examples, some of these attackers were in these environments for up to 2 years, sitting around and doing the things that before we actually were brought in to do the investigation. And then really, we're finding once a malware proves successful, once they're learning in one environment that this stuff is working, they're really going out there and rubber stamping this stuff all over the place. And we often see one environment turn into 5, then turn into 10, and then turn into 80 or 90 that are all infected with the same malware doing the exact same thing. So this is something you could actually download once you're able to actually download the presentation. But these are some of the tools we like to use, and of course our contact information. You can email us or visit our website, and we're going to actually have a copy of the presentation posted there as well.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. I enjoyed it. Thanks for.